So I got that cut off to length there. Now I'm looking at how to put that hole in there in the right place for the roll pin. So I went out to the junk pile and found this old arm. Looks like it's not bent. It's nice and rusty. And I cleaned out the hole. And it's still a nice tight fit on this dowel pin here. And if you eyeball down that shaft there, it looks like that pin's pretty much exactly in line with the arm. So that'll make it easy when I set it up in the mill. I'm going to set it up in the mill to drill this hole, because you got to get that hole exactly in the center of that shaft. So when I set it up on the mill, I can just use the arm to locate it, and I'll make that hole exactly in line with the lever arm. So next I got to figure out where to position the hole from side to side in this shaft. So the part that fits in there, it's about 6 inches wide, and this measures about 6 inches and 40 thousandths between these two pads. So there's about 40 thousandths clearance in there when you put that part in the middle. So now if you look at the part, I'm just going to scale this here, and that's 2 inches and 802 thousandths. And if you go to this side, it's 2 inches and 792 thousandths. Maybe a little more. So that means that hole is within 5 thousandths of being centered on this part. So it looks like if that hole was exactly on center, that would work properly. So now how do you find center in between those pads when this shaft doesn't really locate against anything? Well, I'm going to put some black marker on this shaft here, and I'm going to just scribe a line on each side. And when I put it in the mill, I'm just going to find the center between those two marks, and that's where I'm going to put the hole. I have to let that dry for a bit. Alright, I have this clamped in the vise here on the mill. And I got my handle vertical based on looking at it with this square here. Now if you have an old machine like this one, you'd like to not have to move the knee up and down, that is to move the table up and down once you get your part located, because we're trying to get that hole in a precise location centered in this shaft. So I'm taking my longest tool, which will be the reamer, and I have the table down far enough to make sure that I can get this tool in and out without having to move the table up and down. But I'll still have enough travel to do my drilling and touch it with the center drill down there. So I have this shaft located down a little bit so that I can find the center of the shaft using the indicator on the inside of the jaws here. So now I have found the center of the shaft in that direction, and I have my table locked down so it won't move. And then I'm going to use a pointer to line up with my scribe lines to find the center in the other direction. Now this one I have to move up and down to get that pointer close to my lines, because it's down below the top of the vise jaws. So I'm just trying to make sure that the pointer is on the same side of the line on each side. Now in this case my pointer's not exactly on the line, but it's on the inside edge of the line. Probably can't tell by the camera. use automatic feed on the low setting when reaming. Since the roll pin's going to be driven in from this side, I'd like to have a chamfer on there, and I go just barely deep enough to get a slight chamfer all the way around, and I use a 6-fluted chamfer tool since it's going to be touching on 2 sides at first. If you use a single flute or a 3-flute, it's going to be bouncing back and forth. That looks pretty good there. Alright, I got this in position here, and I'm using a dowel pin. The dowel pin locates it pretty well. And then if I use a feeler gauge on this side, so I got 62 thousandths worth of feeler gauge here. So that's about how big the gap is. And I found a shim that's about 48 thousandths, slightly under 50. So when I put this together for the last time, grease it all up, I'm going to have this shim in there, and that'll limit my side play. So that should work pretty well. Alright, I got these parts painted now. Turned out pretty good. Now I only painted the parts where I removed the original paint, because I'm still not painting this tractor yet. So I was trying to keep the original patina as much as I could. But I painted the parts that I didn't want to rust. So that's ready to go back together. And here's the piece that goes down the middle of it. I got that painted because there was no paint on it before. And you won't be able to see most of that anyways. So that'll just keep it from rusting. Got some grease here. That's not really hand cleaner. Just using the old container. I gotta get me some pliers to get a hold of that piece to get it started in the hole. Got me an old leather glove I'm going to put around here, just so I can grip that with some pliers. The spring has to seat down inside that pocket. It'll stay in there when it's against the frame. So that looks good. Okay, this should be final assembly here. Going to put grease everywhere. Alright, my battery went dead during that, so we'll do it over. Got grease on all my parts. So if I get it all lined up okay, it goes in good. The spring has to stay back in that pocket so it can go up against there. That all looks okay. Now I'm going to move this to the second notch so that I can drive that pin in at a good angle. So I got a new pin here. I could have started that on the bench, probably would have been better. Going to turn the slot to the side where it's going to see less rotational force. And if you're lucky, the pin will line up with the hole in the shaft. Got me a big shaft out of a transmission or something. You want a good, nice flat area to hit that with. So it's sticking out on the bottom about the same as on the top. So your pin's pretty well centered. Alright, that looks pretty good. The new shaft comes out the hole just a little bit there. Side play feels good. And it latches in position pretty nicely. Alright, that's it.